What's the main difference between a bad, a good, and an outstanding training? That's a good question, right? Well, of course there is multiple factors like the trainer preparation, the content accuracy, and even the lunch quality or temperature in the room. But what makes all the difference? Well, it all converges to one factor: exceeding the expectations of your audience. It is all about your delegates acknowledging that they are at the right place, at the right time, with the right trainer and peer attendees to have the most instructive and enjoyable training they ever had. So today we will learn techniques to captivate your delegates to make sure they enjoy the session and make sure they realize what they gain from the training thanks to the ARCS model, a motivation enhancing model developed by John Keller, a reference psychologist in learning motivation. Along my development as a trainer, I've seen plenty of interesting researchers, theories, and models. The one we are about to deal with today, the ARCS model, is clearly a must-know for trainers. I would like also to recognize the work of the Vanderbilt University of Tennessee in the field of learning and development, which was a great source of inspiration for this video. Right, first let's understand this ARCS model. If we get through this part alive, we'll think at what we can learn from it to improve the motivation of delegates, and lastly, consider cases in which it definitely makes sense to apply the ARCS technique. Let's go for it! Let's begin with the definition of the ARCS model, first introduced by John Keller in 1979. ARCS stands for Attention, Relevance, Confidence, and Satisfaction. It is the four aspects that influence student motivation according to his ARCS theory. This model is interesting for us because it's all about finding strategies to improve the motivation of students or training delegates. The first factor, attention, means getting and keeping the delegate's attention and direct this attention to the training topic and information provided. Relevance means it can be applied to present and future delegates' needs at work. It's focused on satisfying the delegates by fulfilling some of their psychological needs and give a practical answer to the problems they encounter at work. The third factor, confidence, includes demonstrating and showing the delegates that some effort in learning the presented concepts will show substantial results for them in the end. Eventually, our fourth factor, satisfaction, can be reached by allowing students some control and self-determination on their learning and make them confident about their success in learning and future progress. Okay, what's in it for you now? Well, when designing your training material and reflecting on the pace of your training, you can use the ARCS technique to filter out the presentation of your content and modify it to better fit in the four aspects: attention, relevance, confidence, and satisfaction. Let's see strategies to improve attention first. In his work, John Keller gives us some hints to improve the attention of the audience. Let's review these together. The first hint is incongruity and conflict. You can trigger delegates' attention by introducing a fact that seems counterintuitive or contradicts the theory or the delegate's previous experience. You could also introduce two equally plausible facts or principles, only one of which can be true, and the delegates have to find out which one is the right. Other option, play the devil's advocate. This will challenge your delegates as they know you are wrong and that they are true. They simply have to find the right arguments to justify it. The second hint is concreteness. Show through images, pictures, videos, user feedbacks, parts of important topics. Provide concrete examples and anecdotes about the concepts you explain, and use content and materials that's as close as possible to the field conditions that the delegate experience. The third aspect is variability. As you already know, vary the tone of your voice. Use body language, poses, and props. Vary the speed of your speech. Bring some humor while being more serious from time to time. Vary the training format between presentations, discussions, practice individually or in groups, testing of concepts, always taking the audience attention and energy level into account. Use many different formats: videos, documents, PowerPoint, manuals, and more. For the fourth aspect, let's come back to humor. Use play on words, funny stories, humorous analogies, especially during redundant information presentation, and get closer to the delegates by creating a playful learning environment. The aspect number 5 would be the contribution of delegates to the training. It's important that the delegates can appropriate themselves the training content and interpret it via associations and analogies to their own experience. Manage some time at regular intervals for problem-solving activities for which their input is required. Next, give the delegates the opportunity to select by themselves the topics, projects, and assignments that appeal to them and that they want to explore. Eventually, keep your delegates active. Use games, role plays, or simulations that require learner participation. In ARCS, the R stands for Relevance, as I'm sure you remember. Here are some strategies to make the delegates understand and also feel that the training content is relevant to them. First, relate to their experience. You can explain how the training uses the delegates' pre-existing knowledge to build on new skills. Even further, use analogies and examples that relate to your delegates' daily environment and previous experiences. Next, make sure that you have understood the delegates' needs and make them understand that the content that you cover answers these needs. Our second aspect is about present worth and future usefulness. You can explicit the present intrinsic value of learning the content independently of future goals. But also, you may state explicitly how the instruction will serve in future situations that the delegate will encounter. Third, let's continue with collaboration. If among your delegates there is a few that you have previously trained in another session, involve them as experts and ask them to provide relevant information on some topics that you have covered during the previous training. You could also ask them to re-explain a previous concept. Being your alumni, they know you and they should be keen to help you. In a self-paced exercise, use those who finish first as deputy tutors to help the others. Finally, show a real enthusiasm for the topic and your delegates will model you. You certainly have had very interesting trainers able to captivate you even on a boring topic. Well, it's time for you to be one of them. The fourth point is about letting the choice to your attendees. You may provide meaningful alternative methods for accomplishing the same goal. It's up to your delegates to select the one most relevant to them. We are now going on with the C of confidence. In order for your delegates to be confident in you, in their capacities, in the fact that they will learn during the session, you have to clearly state learning goals. Based on these goals, you can provide self-evaluation tools for the delegates to monitor their own progression and clearly explain what is expected from them at the end of the training. Next point is about difficulty. Begin easy to build the delegates' confidence and progressively increase the level of difficulty to reach a level slightly higher than what's expected from the delegates. This will ensure everyone is challenged, find it hard, and push them to give their best. Eventually, decrease a bit the level of difficulty to match their expected level when approaching the final evaluation in order to increase again the delegates' confidence. That's how you drive a training right. Let's deal now with attribution and self-confidence. You have to know you must encourage your students through praise, but also recognize successes and failures to better work on these. You have to allow your delegates some opportunities to leave the nest, to learn and practice by themselves once they are ready. For that, begin with relatively autonomous practice under low-risk conditions. Then, as their mastery increases, make sure they become confident, practicing in more realistic conditions. Furthermore, make sure your delegates learn from their failures and become comfortable at trying and failing in the pursuit of learning new skills. Great! We are almost there. Let's see first if we are all on the same page. We did the A, the R, the C. Now let's see the S. The S stands for satisfaction. That's relatively easy. First, avoid surveillance. You remember maybe this teacher was looking over your shoulder when you were passing an exam and as a result you could not think straight anymore? That's exactly what we speak about. Also, whenever possible, prefer self-evaluations to traditional externally graded evaluations. Such self-evaluations enable self-criticism, which is way more effective and subjective than an external evaluation. Plus, self-criticism is a useful skill to master when working autonomously after the training. Next, manage repetitions. This point is key. When delegates are learning a new task, provide frequent repetitions. Then, when they become more and more competent at it, schedule the repetitions with more space in between. As soon as you feel that they are getting closer to being fully ready, then allow your delegates to use their newly acquired skills in a more realistic context. And if you feel some delegates are ready, then use them to guide the others along the way. Reward each successful progress or achievement with a praise. When you accomplish something, normally you are already proud. But if this achievement is acknowledged by other delegates, if it actually has a strong meaning attached to it and it's recognized by the group, it really reinforces the positive outcome and motivates the delegate even more. Care for your delegates, care for their progress, but also for their emotional state. You can do that by also providing feedbacks as soon as it's useful for them. Lastly, there is one thing I personally don't agree with in the satisfaction part. It states that we have to reward every boring task with extrinsic and anticipated rewards. This would mean, basically with an example, the first one who finishes this boring exercise gets a wonderful branded cap. Anybody can have its own opinion on this, as well as on all the rest I've just presented. However, I try as much as possible to avoid boring training parts, and anyway, I don't have spare branded caps to give away. And that was it for our ARCS model introduction. Don't hesitate to come back to this video after a while, as you will see many concepts will echo with other sources dealing with adult learning, and you will discover many links with your experience as a learner or as a trainer. If you want to improve, I encourage you to have a look for the whole ARCS model. There is definitely more in it than the summary I just gave you, but that's a nice start. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and I see you in the next video.